Okay, so welcome to both of you, Sally and Kim. You could join. I think let's. We were just talking about the football, so I'm just going to give a little summary for everyone on what we discussed. We're talking about England match last night. You'll probably know they lost. Penalty was missed. It was huge disappointment because there was all kinds of expectation, and all I commented on was what I was saying was that it's another version of expectation leading to disappointment. We studied this over and over. Idle wishes, Yeshua calls them. Buddha called it craving or desire. And whenever you have these expectations, it creates suffering. That's the second noble truth of Buddhism that he noticed. And you see that playing out in these dramas on the screen with the football. Huge expectation and then equally huge disappointment because the expectations aren't met. So it's a win-lose game. The ego is always sponsoring win-lose games, setting you up for disappointment. In the end, only one country and one team will be happy, and everyone else is going to be disappointed, which is a classic ego game. So not everyone's happy. In fact, only one country's really happy because they beat everyone else. They someone had to lose for them to be the winner. So that's how the ego works. It's a win-loss thought system based on sacrifice. As you think about how the ego originated, in order for the ego to exist, it had to deny spirit, oneness. So I've got my identity as a separate entity at the expense of oneness. So I've won and something had to lose. There's always the idea of sacrifice. So that's why the ego doesn't understand everyone winning, because it's based on I won, I got my identity, but something had to be lost in order for that to happen. You see, so at its very core, it's based on the idea of sacrifice, not win-win, but win-lose. And then we see the world that it's created, and it's world of duality is a win-loss world, where they're winners and they're losers. And if someone wins, someone must lose. Those are the games the ego's invented. So you can see, through looking at even things like football, you can see these spiritual principles at work, and it can be quite interesting, mind watching, to observe all of this playing out, because you see the emotional drama playing out, and then just be above the battleground, rise above it, and go, well, actually, it's all just another ego game. It's all part of the illusion, which the whole world buys into. But I don't have to. I can see through it and not get attached, and not get disappointed, and just observe and learn from it. And if there is any disappointment, can I just be honest and let that go? So, well, any disappointment is only because I had an expectation and I was identifying with that team. My self-concept had got now attached to the team I identified with, and I made it part of my self-concept. And then I feel like my self-image, my self-concept can be damaged when they lose, which is why you see these players and fans in despair. They lose and they're in tears because their self-concept has now been apparently damaged because their team has apparently lost the football. But actually all that's happened is the one side has scored more goals than the other. Actually, that's all. Is that really a loss? You see how you can interpret it completely different. Okay, well, France scored 2 goals and England scored 1. That's the fact of the matter, isn't it?
Yeah.
Did England really lose? No, they scored 1 goal and France scored 2. Actually, that's but we interpret it. You see how it's all about interpretation. Oh, but now that means that France are the winners and England are the losers. And so now England must be sad and France must be happy. That's bizarre. All about interpretation of seeming events. Okay, so apparently 2 goals were scored by France and 1 was scored by England, and England missed a penalty, and they could have had some other chances. So that's the fact of the matter. But the interpretation of it is what causes the drama. If you had no interpretation of it, like say Forrest Gump, there's no drama. There's no interpretation. I'm not really giving it the meaning that everyone else does. So then I can't suffer because of it. So all of this, when you watch something like football, anything happening on a world level, it can all be used for mind training. Can be really useful to see how these principles that we're studying apply. Remind yourself of them. It becomes another letting go exercise for you. Okay, well, it was very clear to me yesterday was that the ego cannot ever bring happiness. Don't expect these kinds of games to bring lasting happiness for everyone. It's just not possible. Don't look there. Look to spirit. Look to the non-dual truth. Don't look to the illusion of win-loss games that are set up for disappointment and suffering. Someone will always suffer because of it. Because someone's got to win and someone's got to lose. But why even play such a game? So in your own life, don't play win-loss games. Play win-win games. I can only win, because no matter what happens, I'm always in spirit and I'm always in the flow of life, and I can enjoy myself no matter what. So as with everything, you can perceive it differently, correct your perception, and use it as part of the mind training that we're doing with everything. So any thoughts on that? Any more comments, or should we move on to the teaching today?
Like the comments, definitely there's ego stuff, but it's like you say, it's the reinterpretation. Change your perception. It's an opportunity to do that.
So then, okay, this stuff's going to go on. The world doesn't change. Football will go on. There'll be more World Cups and more tournaments, because that's the game. But you can reinterpret it, and you can even watch it. I watched it because it was an opportunity to watch it with my son and spend some family time, and that's nice. There's a connection, and there's a unity. So you can even do that, but just not be attached to the outcome. Like, well, whatever. They win, they lose. You can watch it in a kind of quite a neutral state of mind, where there is no expectation, and there is no emotional drama, and you can watch all of that unfolding on the screen without getting sucked into it.
And how did your son feel about it?
Oh, well, he was jumping around. The ref,
Yes, the ref was.
The ref's like, oh no, that's so unfair. No.
Yeah.
Because on the level of form, that's what it appears to be. But if you're not attached, then you just go, well, that's the ref made that decision, and end of. And you don't have to interpret it. You don't have to go, oh, well, the ref's got an agenda against us, or you just go, well, that's it, end of. And okay, decision is the decision, and that's letting go, isn't it? You're not then going, oh, we unfairly treated, and the ref's given us a raw deal, and then we have the opportunity to feel like victims and unfairly treated because of it. You just, okay, the ref did that, and you don't interpret it further. End of conversation. The ref did that. Okay, but it's so interesting how we interpret things, and we create a meaning out of these things. An event happens, and you create the meaning, and the meaning is what causes the problems. Which is why Yeshua begins his workbook with "Nothing I see means anything." That's the first lesson, which remains. I mean, that lesson alone, if you just applied that, it's the answer. You can't get upset. You can't get emotionally upset. You can't experience any pain, any suffering, because nothing I see means anything. So the football I'm seeing and the score, that doesn't mean anything. So I can stay in a very clear, calm, happy state because it doesn't mean anything. But it's the meaning we give it. It's that creates the food for the ego. So it's just, you can see that so clearly with something like football because the emotions are so visible. See these grown men crying and sobbing, and players. So one set of players celebrating and going crazy and really happy, and the others were like down and out on the pitch, going, "Oh my God, my life's just ended." And that could have just reversed. It could have switched around if the results had been different. The other players would have been really. And you go, but that's just crazy, isn't it? Your emotional well-being is now governed by the external. What seemingly happened on the level of form. That's egoic attachment. So we were saying, well, if you had to coach them, how would you get them over that? Well, you'd have to do some deep mind training to help them let go of their expectation around the outcome. So it's not about the expectation. We're just playing football. We play it because we love to play it. We love to play as a team. We enjoy the process, and whatever happens will happen. We're not attached to outcome at all. So I reckon if you could train a team into that mindset, they you probably have world beaters, because they just wouldn't let the pressure get to them. They'd just play.
Yeah.
But that's a whole level of mind training that probably none of the teams are doing, because you've got to go to the core of the ego and question it and say, well, is this actually true? All of this, and everyone's attached. The coaches, everyone's in it. You can see it's quite funny. You watch some of the, especially English Premiership. I mean, you watch the emotion on these coaches. They just, I don't know, like the coaches lose. The coaches sometimes get red cards. That's funny, because they're freaking out, and the ref just goes red card, and the coach has got to leave, the dugouts, and they've got to go up into the stands, because the coach can't keep his emotions under control, because he's so invested in his team's outcome that he can't go, okay, well, actually.
Yeah.
So, they're all in it. The coaches are probably as attached as the players, maybe even more so, because their job's on the line. They know it. They've got to produce the results when they're out. So to go in there into the ego's world and say, okay, well, let's just look at it differently. It would be interesting. I'd love to do it, but I'm not sure it's going to happen anytime soon. All right, so that's a little reflection on the football and applying spiritual principles to it. Anything else you want to share, Kim or Sally? Otherwise, let's dive into the
I think I was listening to it was quite a long recording on Friday, the first one, but I always appreciate when I can get to listen to the recordings, all the just the insights and the sharing that have been shared between Sally, Jackie, Susie. I know everyone so I just wanted to share that it is being listened to.
Yeah, good.
And it helps my thinking and helps to reaffirm some things and my journey. So I just wanted to say thanks for the sharing. Yeah,
good to know. I think that's happening for a lot of people on the a lot of people aren't joining at all, but I think there is the recordings are being listened to, so it does help.
Yeah.
And all this material is available for future years. When we do it again, so this recordings are all available. And what seems to unfold in the recordings, it's quite rich. Because it's not just a monologue. You can't do it. It has to be a discussion. What unfolds is engaging and interesting, I find. So thank you to Sally, really, for Sally's the one who shows up most, and she rustles up the troops. She's got Jackie staying with her in her house, and then Lynn And Susie also came via Sally's network. So
oh yes, Lynn as well.
yeah, no, it's a whole
bitten by a dog.
Yeah.
You know, these situations and
yes, yeah, you heard about that.
yeah.
Yeah, well, it's life, isn't it? It's learning from
Mm.
these experiences of life and applying the course to to daily life. That's what it's about. So I think that's what happens in the discussions, and yeah, hopefully it's valuable, and you can listen to it any time, which is good. So
Yeah.
you could be driving or
Yeah. I have
cooking or
been
cooking.
doing.
Yeah, and
Yeah,
then
I
you just
was at the
listen.
gym and driving when I was listening to this
Yeah,
last
yeah,
recording.
yeah. Okay, so shall we share my screen? Sally, anything to share, or I see you on the move there? I'm just gonna dive into the.
No, it's very interesting when you were talking about the football, because I related it to my work. A lot of sense. Yeah, it's good. And also with the recordings with me, when I have listened to a recording when I haven't turned up, it's very helpful.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think so. There's something about this modality. I like discussions. There's something that happens in a discussion that's, I've seen, we've all watched videos of a monologue, someone just speaking to a camera. It just doesn't really do it for me. No matter what information's being shared, it's not the same as a conversation and a discussion between a few people. Different energy. So yeah, it's great. We get to do it, and all the materials then recorded for next year, so you have access to all of it again, and then listen to this and okay, so then you become your own teacher. You'll be listening to it and you went, okay, all right, that's interesting.
That'd be weird, wouldn't it? Listening to ourselves a year later and going, oh my God, did I used to think that? Oh my God.
Or it just reminds you, I remember that insight I had, or whatever, or that time in my life, that experience. All right, so there's today's quote, and we'll go into the teaching. So after that, so Kim, do you want to read the quote?
Yeah. People will do anything, no matter how absurd, in order to avoid facing their own souls. One does not become enlightened by imagining figures of light, but by making the darkness conscious.
Carl Jung. So yeah, let's unpack that. Do you want to read the first paragraph?
Today's inspirational quote by Carl Jung, one of the most enlightened psychologists who's ever lived, describes the methodology of the transformation process through which Yeshua guides you in A Course in Miracles extremely well. He and Carl Jung are saying exactly the same thing. You will never awaken from the dream before, become enlightened or find salvation, as Yeshua calls it in today's Workbook Lesson, unless you're willing to face the darkness of the ego's thoughts and emotions and let them go.
Yeah, thoughts on that?
Yeah, I just from the recording the other day, and I was listening to earlier today, we talked about what is the ghosting?
Metaphysical ghosting.
Metaphysical ghosting. Or just saying positive, look at the positive without actually addressing the what's really behind it, and really going to that negative emotion, which is difficult to do. In fact, I think that's always so I mean, say with the breath work, the meditations, the lessons, etc., and it's like another opportunity to let it go, especially if something's arising. So I guess again, it's being like having to go to that, and in the forgiveness, you still go to that emotion or that feeling to unpack it. Or okay, maybe or to use the process to let it go. But I mean, like that instrument of peace, that's really unpacking it. And people might say, so many people might not want to go there to really unpack it. But that's also like, I guess it's like finding that balance, because you can try and unpack it forever and not reach a solution. That's where.
Yeah. Well, that's what a lot of psychologists do. It's like endlessly, let's go to explore this and unpack it, and we go into the past, and you understand why you're an emotional mess now, because you had a abusive past, whatever, and let's talk about it. So you have to go there, but then what a lot of therapists don't know is they don't know how to help their clients to radically let it go, to really let it go. Because the only interpretation that's going to help them to completely let it go is that it's not real. Is the Holy Spirit's understanding that whatever is happening here in this world on the level of form is unreal. So it hasn't really happened. That's the only way you're going to let it go. You have to deny it at its its apparent root cause. Which most therapists don't do, because they don't understand it themselves. Because if they understood it, they'd be enlightened, and they wouldn't necessarily be using psychotherapy or whatever their modality is. Yeshua even says at some point in the there's a psychotherapy edition, which we'll do. Once we finish the manual for teachers, we'll go into that. He says, nothing really happens in psychotherapy, because it's all about the past, and there's no genuine letting go. The issue often hasn't really been resolved. It's been looked at. Okay, so you look at it, and that in itself, that can be somewhat helpful to have some awareness of it and bring it up into conscious awareness, as Carl Jung's saying, by making the darkness conscious. Okay, so that's all very well. Step one, make the darkness conscious, and that's exactly what Yeshua is saying. But then what are you going to do with it? If you make the darkness conscious and you have no way to let it go, then you just stay in, making the darkness conscious. Oh, there's more darkness, and you make it real through that. If you continue on that, if there's no letting go, you make the darkness conscious, and then you let it go, is the corollary to it. So what Yeshua is saying is, yes, make the darkness conscious, bring it into conscious awareness, but then you must let it go, and you let it go by reminding yourself of the truth, that nothing in this world of form is true or real. So whatever it is that you're experiencing is false. Therefore, the emotional drama and thoughts and any thoughts and emotions are causing any kind of suffering are not true and not real. And so now you bring the illusions to the truth. And if you understand that, then the darkness must go. You go, well, how can I possibly believe in that anymore? I recognize that it's just not true. And so that's radical forgiveness, is making the darkness conscious and then bringing it to the truth that, okay, no darkness is real. None of this is real. Nothing that happens on the level of form is real. It's an unreal construct of the mind. It's a projection of the ego mind that has no reality. So therefore, when I understand that, I can let it go. That understanding, that realization will dissipate any emotional charge, because if you really realize it's not real, it's never happened, then it's gone. How can you even think about it? Feel any negative
I think what's
emotions?
challenging though is that I know it's like we'll follow through the process, but are we actually realizing it's not real? Or are we just telling ourselves that it's not real?
Well, it's kind of fake it until you make it. So what he's saying is, by practicing forgiveness and saying to yourself, and you go through the process and you say, okay, I'm looking at this, and there's this issue and it's coming up, and I'm looking at the darkness, I'm feeling the whatever it is, the fear, the anxiety, the guilt, the attack thoughts. And then I bring it to the idea that none of this is true and none of this is real. Now, you probably don't fully believe that straight away, because how could you? You wouldn't have had any suffering then if you knew that already.
Yeah.
So you practice saying, okay, I bring the illusion to the truth, and I say, this isn't real. So that's teaching me the truth. through the forgiveness that it's not true and nothing is true. And I learn more and more to apply it to every situation without exception. So the forgiveness is the practice of it, of actually learning. It's how you learn the truth, that only the truth is true, that all illusions are false, that none of this is real. It's where the rubber meets the road. And so as you forgive more, you learn the truth. And as you learn the truth helps you to forgive more. Because if you realize that it's all illusion, then you start to get to the point where nothing triggers you anymore.
Yeah.
You're not bothered because you realize it's all false. Okay. So we'll move on to the next one. Sally, do you want to read, or are you moving around?
Yeah. Can you carry on without me for a minute? I've just got to do something.
Yeah. Okay. So Kim, if you can read the next one. He calls this process forgiveness.
He calls this process forgiveness or atonement in A Course in Miracles. I prefer calling it letting go, because this phrase is not as open to misinterpretation as the words forgiveness and atonement or at-one-ment, which have been used to describe the opposite way of thinking from the radical forgiveness or letting go Yeshua advocates in A Course in Miracles.
So atonement in the Christian teaching is the atonement for sins. You've sinned, and now you must somehow expiate the sin, as say here, atonement. Do you want to read the next one?
Atonement, as defined in traditional Christian theology, is a reparation or expiation for sin, and the reconciliation of God and mankind through Jesus Christ apparently died as part of this expiation process for our collective sins, so that we could be reunited with God through his sacrifice.
So that's the traditional Christian interpretation of the crucifixion. Oh no, we've all sinned, so therefore God required a sacrifice of his only son in order to atone for our sins, so we could be reunited with God. And so through Jesus' sacrifice, we reunited with God. Just doesn't really stack up, does it, at all? It's making the idea of sin real, that somehow now that the sin is real and it must be paid for. There's a sacrifice. Well, this isn't the way that God thinks at all. There's no sacrifice in pure perfect oneness. Nothing needs to die in order to atone for sins that aren't even real. So the whole thing's a misinterpretation that's become formalized as dogma that people believe in. They said this is the Christian teaching. Well, no, it's a misinterpretation of that event that happened, crucifixion, resurrection drama, and a misinterpretation of Yeshua's teachings that has led to this. And so, atonement in that sense is completely the opposite to the at-one-ment of the Course. Totally different thought system, same word, but they've been used to point to different thought systems, which is interesting. The same word, but depending on how you perceive it, it's going to be used by the ego to confirm the reality of sin and guilt, and that's always going to be there, and you've somehow got to get rid of it, or atone for it, or at-one-ment, which simply says there never was any sin or guilt. These are false. These are illusions. So we don't need a sacrifice to be reunited with God. We just need to let go of our misperception of sin and guilt, we just have to realize they don't exist. That was the true teaching that Yeshua came to teach through his life, his teachings, and then the crucifixion, resurrection drama was part of that. Saying, well, you think you think that you can die, you think you can crucify yourself, and you demonstrated that, but actually you can't. There's only eternal life. And he demonstrated that in the resurrection. It was the final demonstration that sin and guilt and pain and suffering and sickness and death and attack, and everything was symbolized in the crucifixion. The ego was symbolized through the crucifixion. The resurrection symbolized that none of that is true or real, and that it can be overcome. So this is using the same terminology, but actually completely the reverse of traditional Christian teaching. Because that says, one person who was very special had to come and die for our sins, which were real, and then he had to atone for real sins and sacrifice his life, and therefore through him we're saved. And you have to believe in Jesus, that he did this for you somehow in order to be saved. Well, surely if he let's look at the logic. If he did that, he would have done it for everyone, whether you believed it or not. It wouldn't matter. But somehow you have to believe in it for it to now have effect for you. So there are a whole lot of contradictions in that belief system. Whereas the truth is very simple. No, there never was any sin. It never really happened. And Yeshua's whole teaching was designed to just teach us that. You never sinned. You're not guilty. So none of it's true. And therein lies your resurrection into eternal life when you understand that. Okay?
Mm-hmm.
The next one, Sally, if you can read. This clearly contradicts the true teachings.
This clearly contradicts the true teachings of Yeshua in A Course in Miracles that are well summarized in this quote from the first insert, part 2 of the workbook, that answers the question, what is forgiveness? Forgiveness recognizes that you thought your brother did what you thought your brother did to you has not occurred. It does not pardon sins and make them real. It sees there was no sin. And in that view are all your sins forgiven. Yeah, so what you were talking about, like, where do I go in my mindset? When a few years ago, I had this insight that my childhood was just an illusion and it wasn't real. But then it's taken years to get to this point where I go, no, it's still not real, but still not absolutely buying into it all. It's not just a realization, is it? It's like it's so making Jackie joke. I'm just saying that it takes time, doesn't it, to really, really, really believe it and really know it. I've seen it with my own eyes. I had this experience where I could really see that it wasn't real. I felt it all, I experienced it, and still here I am years later going, yeah, it's not real, is it?
Yeah. It's a simple insight, but to actually really deeply believe it, the correction of your mind. This is why we need the mind training. Because we have got ourselves very attached into the dream world. And this is the default belief that we all have. And now you can have an insight, a glimpse in those moments. It's called a moment of Satori. In the East, they call it Satori, a moment of insight, a holy instant where you just see the truth. And you can have those, but then the ego will return, and you return to your default mode. And it's about building on that insight, saying, okay, well, I'm going to practice that systematically, consciously, progressively in my life through a program like this. Okay, every day I'm gonna apply that insight into whatever situation's facing me. Remind myself constantly that it's not really real. It's not really happening. So any kind of negative thought and emotion is not justified if that's true. And that's the practice, ongoing, disciplined spiritual practice of applying this thought system to everything that seems to be occurring for you. That's the work, and you probably haven't done that, or you not to this level anyway in the past. It's like now taking it to the level, okay, every day you're going to be practicing this. You've got the lessons, and really, really applying this teaching to everything without exception. That's the learning. That's what we have to learn. One moment of insight can be great. It can open you up and go, okay, I've seen the truth, and so I have that, that experience. But that's not enough.
No.
Be enlightened. It'll open the door. Maybe then you have the faith to say, okay, I've had that experience. I know this to be true, but I must practice it. I must apply it in my daily life. Otherwise, the ego will come back and cover that over and get you attached again into the dream world.
Yeah, it's like I've got that foundational knowledge, but there's a but. Yeah, I mean, I don't feel
you're
like
not quite there yet, but that's okay. That's okay. Because
Mm.
that's, he's saying this is a process. You wouldn't need to practice if you were there already. You wouldn't need lessons, and you wouldn't need to do all this mind training, because you would have got it. But the journey of our lives is that we don't fully get it, and so our lives become the practice to help us to get it. And that's a lifelong practice. You'll be practicing this probably until the day you die. Now, hopefully by that stage there will have been okay, I really do get it now. There's a deep knowing that this is true. I've accepted it. I've relinquished any attachment to this world and my self-concept, the ego. And so when I finally leave it all behind, I lay the body aside, my mind is in a healed state. And there's no need to come back. I don't believe in this place anymore. So if I don't believe in it, how can I come back to what doesn't exist for me? So that's what we're doing, and it's just disciplined, detailed, systematic, progressive practice of this idea of forgiveness that's going to get you there over and over and over again. Try not to make exceptions. And he's given us that practice through his course, through the workbook lessons. And now you've got the art of letting go, the resource and stuff around, just so you can remind, okay, I'm just going to practice this ongoing. That's what my life is about. My only function is forgiveness. What he's saying is you only need to learn this. You don't need to learn how to let go. That's what your life is for.
Yeah, it's that thing again where I know it in my head, don't know it in my heart and hara or lower chakras or whatever you want to call it. It's like it's there. Yeah, that always happens.
So yeah, really knowing it is it's a deep knowing. It's you absolutely know it 100%, and you're not tempted by the ego to make exceptions. And that that's ongoing practice. And he's saying, I've given you this course so that you can practice until you do get to the level where you just know it. At this point, practice isn't necessary anymore, because you know it, and in your knowing, you're forgiving by default. Your realization that none of it's real means there's nothing to forgive, as he saying here.
Yeah, I know there's nothing to forgive
Ultimately, but that's an enlightened state of mind when you know that nothing's bothering you. So there's nothing to forgive, because you recognize from the start that none of it's real. So there's no misperception that then comes in that you've then got to correct. There's nothing to forgive because you realize that all of it's unreal. So you just don't react to any of it in the first place.
It feels like I get that on the larger scale, but it's the little tiny things, everyday things, where I get lost in it a little bit. Like, today I was like trying to fit in things and time wise, and I can't believe that I'd only got 20 minutes for this and 5 minutes for this, and so I wasn't believing at that moment it was all an illusion. But then I can step out of it, like you say, above the battleground, and I can know that it's not real. And I see that when I'm working with other people, I really know it's not real. It's just tiny little things on the day-to-day basis, like it's got to be walked. Oh, I've got to go out there and it's cold, or it's, I've got to fit this client in and now I'm running late. And I just, there's subtle little stuff that catches me. The bigger stuff, it's all right. It's like the bigger story, like, my dad did this, or my mum did this, or whatever it might be. that's all right. I've got that sorted.
Oh, this is integrating it completely into your life. So, every moment you understand this. You go for a dog walk, but there's no thought about it. There's no like, oh, I know I've got to go for a dog walk. It's cold. I don't really want to go. It's like, okay, I'm just going. I'm doing it. Just do it. Before enlightenment is a great Zen saying. Before enlightenment, chop wood, carry water.
Yeah.
After enlightenment, chop wood, carry water.
Yeah, I get
Doing
that.
the same thing, in your case, walk dog, and manage business, whatever. But do it without expectation or judgment. So that's why you're still here, and why you haven't just ascended. There's still some integration to do. But that's okay. It's just the process. Just keep, if you keep on this process, you keep working, you start to integrate more and more, and you will get to a point where, you're living in that enlightened state where forgiveness isn't required because nothing bothered you to start with. You just do whatever you need to do without any of the ego's mental, emotional drama commentary coming in.
I made some little cardboard stand things that have got big A's on them to remind me of the big awareness, the true awareness, and they're dotted around the house, and every now and again, not one accidentally, it falls on the floor to go, oh yeah, got to remember. Being reminded, true awareness.
Yeah, it's good. They're just pointers to remind you, underneath all the illusion of time and space and anything that you're aware of on the level of form, underneath that is pure formless awareness. Always. So, it has to be. Otherwise, you would just cease to be, and that's not possible. So whatever you're perceiving with the senses is a cover over that awareness. But even while you're here, the art of this is to live rooted in the deeper awareness, so that you don't get attached to the surface perception. So your sense perceptions come in. Don't have too much choice about that. You can close your eyes in meditation and stuff, and you could choose to not listen to TV or radio or social media or whatever, but you're still going to be having sense perceptions as long as you're human, right? So that's something you can't really. Your eyes will see, your ears will hear. That's the matrix we're wired into, jacked into it. But how you perceive those, you do have a choice about. And so that's where this course is training us. It's okay, interpret all of the data that you get from this apparently external world, but interpret it differently from the perspective of perfect oneness, which simply reminds you that none of it's true. None of that data, none of your sense perceptions, nothing that's seemingly happening here is true. It's all part of a hallucination. Very clever construct of the ego mind to convince you that the idea of separation, you as a separate self, is real. That's what it's all designed to do, to convince you that's the case. And you have to say the ego's done a pretty good job of that, hasn't it? But most people completely convinced, because it's set it up that way. The external, the projection, perception, seeing an external world, having five senses, we literally jacked into the program. If it's all a computer program, we are so jacked into the program that we think we're in the program. And unless you do mind training like this, that's the default perception. Most people, you think you're in the program, you think you're in the movie, a character, who's actually real, who really is here as a separate person and with separate interests and a body and all this drama going on in your life. And to reprogram that and realize that you're not that character, even while you're still seemingly playing the character, that's the journey. And that isn't easy. No one, if anyone tells you it's easy, for most people it's not. Occasionally people like Romano, etc., get it. He just woke up when he was 16. But I suspect that was probably many lifetimes of spiritual work that had gone into that. He was already pretty enlightened. That was his final lifetime where he just got it. So probably a lot of work had gone into to undo this really deep-seated belief that has now been externalized in the projection of the world, that seems to be so real. You seem to have a body, and you seem to have other people in bodies, and your perceptions seem to be real, and stuff seems to be happening in your life. So to undo that, well, it's quite an exercise, isn't it? It's not simple. Well, it's simple, but it's going to take a lot of reprogramming, because you've programmed yourself. So the ego's programmed us into the belief that we're separate, that we are human, that we really are here so well. We've done that so completely, covered over the truth of pure formless awareness of perfect love so well, that it's going to take a lot of work to undo that false program. Mm-hmm. Just keep practicing.
Mm.
And be gentle with yourself. That's okay. Right. So stuff's still coming up. That's okay. I can, as long as I notice it and I keep practicing and I remind myself to let it go and don't beat myself up for being slow and not getting this. Understand the immensity of what you're trying to do. Winning a football World Cup is nothing compared to this. We're talking about deconstructing the ego mind, freeing yourself from time and space entirely. I mean, this is the ultimate human accomplishment. There's nothing else that's comes even close to what Yeshua is asking you to do here. So you're taking on, the hardest task possible, and just be compassionate with yourself. Okay, it's fine. And it isn't an easy journey. It's the hardest thing. So yes, you will get temptations and trials, and you'll lose your way a bit. But as long as you stay on the journey and you keep coming back, then that's all okay. That's part of the journey. So you can't really screw it up as long as you keep. Well, even if you do go way out of it and you forgot this and you said, okay, I'm not doing the course, and that would just be okay. Well, you took a detour, and maybe in 5 or 10 years you come back to it when you've suffered some more. So you can't really screw this up. It's just, how much do you want to suffer? Really, that's the question. How much do you want to suffer in getting home? You know the truth of that. Do you really want unnecessary suffering, or are you just willing to go, okay, I'll do the discipline, this mind training? A lot of people, well, that sounds like too much hard work. Well, it's either that, or you're gonna suffer the pains of unconsciousness. You suffer because now the ego's in charge, and it's going to make you suffer, and that's ongoing. If you don't resolve it and you don't know how to let go, that's just an ongoing river of misery running through your life. Whereas this, it's like, there's work, and you've got to be disciplined, and you've got to do the mind training, and you might say, well, that's all a bit much hard work, but it's freeing your mind from a lot of suffering that's not necessary. So every time you forgive, you might be saving yourself years of suffering and a whole karmic episode that you now don't need to experience, because you're forgiving your dog, or you're forgiving the fact that it's cold, or whatever. So I mean, you're on the right track. You're doing it. It's just applying it without exception to everything. Just keep reminding yourself, okay, we just got to keep doing this, and more and more you'll stay rooted in that higher awareness, and eventually you realize you are that, and there is no other awareness, and then the job's done. You realize there is no self.
What about when somebody goes into healing? When somebody's done a lot of letting go, they sometimes become a bit unwell. Is that just a story? Because it feels like somebody's done it today. They've gone into a massive, what I would have called in the old days, a healing crisis, or a healing phase. And I'm just wondering, is that true, or is that because she didn't know anything about that sort of after a big clearing she might do? So is that my story projecting out?
Well, any sickness is ultimately not true. We know that. Sickness is just part of the illusion. So ultimately not true, but temporarily something's arising. Well, it can be a process. She's got to work through some stuff that's come up. Then the ego, maybe as a defense mechanism, comes up with sickness to defend it. But that's then part of the revealing of the ego, so it can now be reinterpreted and let go. So that's often what happens. It seems things are getting worse because all the stuff that's been repressed has got to come up. And if that gets unlocked, often the energy of that is toxic, so it can then make the body sick. But that's then part of the clearing of it.
Mm.
As long as she doesn't get stuck in the sickness idea, just recognizes, well, it's just the ego arising, and it's fun. I can just move through this. I don't have to believe in it. Even when you're sick, apparently sick, you've got the symptoms. You don't have to believe in sickness. See, that's the art of it. You can just let it go and say, well, it's not really bothering me, which will then help the healing enormously.
Yeah.
The body will heal if there's no belief in sickness and you don't think it's useful. I mean, I was a bit under the weather last week, and it lasted a few days, but I was just like, I reminded myself, this isn't of any value at all. Sickness has no meaning and no purpose. So there's no like, oh, well, I'm sick and poor me, or any of that. It's just like, it has no point and no purpose. So you just remind yourself of the truth, and then very quickly it went. It's just like, okay, the symptoms come, they go, but there's no identification. So that's the thing. Don't identify with it. You start to identify, oh, poor me, oh, I'm really poorly, I'm under the, oh, no, now you're in trouble because the ego's got you identifying with it. I'm this and I'm that because of the sickness.
Oh, I think how I sell it to people is I say at the healing phase, just drink lots of water, have a rest, and it will pass. Because I think then they're not identifying with I've got flu or I'm ill. They're just as a positive thing that it's going to pass in a couple of days. I think what I'm doing is probably all right. Yeah, just checking.
Yeah. And get them just not to identify with it. That's the key. And okay, whatever's happening on the body level, it's not true. So you allow it, but just let it pass through. It's arising and it's passing away, arising and passing away.
Yeah.
Without any identification with it. So, using the Vipassana could be helpful as well. You go, just observe the sensations.
Yeah.
What is sickness? Just a bunch of sensations. You observe all of that, but you don't judge and go, oh, I'm feeling so poorly because of these sensations. Just, okay, that's the sensation in the body happening. So it's an experience, but without the interpretation that the ego wants to give it, you allow the healing to happen very quickly.
Yeah, that's good.
Okay. So let's ask Jackie, will you read the next one? So through these words, Jackie with us, or?
Yeah, she's writing down something really important you just said. Give her a minute.
Okay. Okay, that's good. Very diligent. Taking
It's
notes.
obviously very important.
That was an important one. Which one? Through these words.
So read this again because it's been a while. Just read that, and then these are the words commenting.
The quote.
Yeah.
Forgiveness recognizes what you thought your brother did to you has not occurred. It does not pardon sins and make them real. It sees there was no sin, and in that view, all your sins are forgiven. Okay. Through these words, Yeshua is teaching us that there is no sin. So the idea of atoning for sins, which makes sins real and then tries to expiate or pardon them, must be false if this is true. He also teaches us that true forgiveness is to overlook any apparent sins completely, rather than making them real in your mind and then trying to pardon them. This again contrasts with the more conventional definition of to forgive, which according to the Oxford Dictionary is to stop feeling angry or resentful towards someone an offense, flaw, or mistake.
You see the problem with that?
Yeah.
Must stop feeling angry or resentful, but there is an offense, there is a flaw, there's a mistake. That's real in my perception. Well, how do I then stop feeling angry or resentful when I think that this is what's happened?
Mm.
Very difficult. It's not going to work.
You have to recognize it as a part of your own ego mind that you're seeing.
Yeah, you have to see that the offense, flaw, or mistake is unreal.
Mm. Because it's a projection of your mind.
That's the only way you're going to do this. There's no other way than radical forgiveness. Otherwise, you make it real. Then you go, well, I shouldn't feel angry or resentful, but my perception has made it real. So naturally, what comes from making it real is a perception of I'm unfairly treated, and I'm angry now because I've been unfairly treated. So you can't see the offense, the flaw, the mistake, and focus on that and expect to not be angry and resentful. And so yes, you're saying, well, you need to look at this and you need to reinterpret everything that seemingly happened and is happening in your life. And instead of seeing the offense, the flaw, the mistake, recognize that nothing that you see means anything. Nothing you perceive means anything. It's not real.
Mm.
So there's no offense or flaw or mistake. And you can start, we're talking about the football. You just go, well, England scored 1 goal and France scored 2. That's the end of. There's no flaw, mistake. Oh, the ref did that's a misperception. The truth is, actually nothing really happened. But if you just want to start, baby steps for people, say, well, England scored 1 goal and France scored 2. Okay, end of. Or the temperature, instead of saying it's cold and unpleasant, I don't want to go out, the temperature is -1 degrees. Okay, temperature's that's it. No interpretation. Or someone didn't call me. Okay, someone didn't call me. In the end of, you don't interpret it. You don't go, oh well, someone didn't call me, therefore they being difficult, or they're rejecting me or banning me, or they're playing mind games, or whatever the interpretation is. Just person didn't call. End of. So that's practicing it, and that's how you put it into practice.
Mm.
You don't give it, although these things seem to be real in the illusion, you don't make them real through your thoughts and your emotions. That's the key. That's what forgiveness means. You don't make them real through the thoughts and the emotions you have about them.
Yeah.
So it's like you're playing as though they're not real, even though they've seemingly happened, and on the level of form, you might need to take an action. But mentally and emotionally, they are unreal for you. That's the mind game we're playing here. That's what you got to get good at doing, because that's training your mind to restore itself to its original state of mind where none of the stuff was real.
Yeah.
And that's the only way out. You have to look at all these illusions and remind yourself that they don't have any meaning, because they're not real. So why have I got any kind of negative thoughts and emotion about them if they're not real?
Yeah.
And that's the only way you're going to be able to stop feeling angry or resentful, because your perception has fundamentally changed it.
Yeah.
And that's then based on the the true self-concept. We want to look at instrument for peace diagram again. Might be useful in this context. It's quite well illustrated in this. So you look at this levels of mind, it explains it quite well. You can't expect, if you have a belief that it's real, let's say something's happened and you're feeling unfairly treated. So you've got a self-concept there going on, a separate self-concept of being a separate person who's unfairly treated by someone else. Right? So that's the core belief. I'm unfairly treated, I'm a victim, this always happens to me. Then you have thoughts, this is, how dare this person do this? How dare they treat me this way? Then you have anger and resentment. an emotion, and then you have a perception of the situation as, yeah, I've been unfairly treated, and this person has really done this to me, and they're bastards, and that you know, there's a whole layer of things beneath that need to be looked at and unpacked. If you perceive the offense, then you've made your self-concept real, and everything that follows from that is also real. You must then believe that you are a victim, you're unfairly treated, your thought that you're unfairly treated, and that you're a victim, and that this person's, you know, really done this to you. It seems to be real. The emotion of anger or resentment seems to be real, and the whole perception of it is, oh, you know, actually there's someone else who's hurt me. It seems to be real, and you'll never get around that unless you go to the core, which is your desire or prayer of the heart. Do I desire in the situation to be a separate self, therefore a victim, unfairly treated, or do I want to be oneself? Yeah, I want only the truth to be true.
Yeah.
So it comes down to your desire. What do you choose? That's the only way out. And then you say, well, because I want to be oneself, I know the benefits of this, then I can no longer believe in that separate self concept. I'm not a victim, and I'm not unfairly treated. This just happened. The person did this, and so what? I'm not a victim. I don't interpret it from the victim story.
Yeah.
That happened, it arose, but no story about it. So now I've changed my belief. Now my core belief starts to become, well, actually, I'm fine. I'm the self. I'm still one self, and this can't affect me.
Yeah.
My thoughts change because, yeah, I'm okay. No, this doesn't really have to bother me. I can rise above this, and in fact, it's not even real.
Yeah.
And then the emotion, well, I'm not bothered. I'm actually okay. I'm at peace. And my perception is, oh, instead of, you know, major separation, this person's done this to me, and I'm separate, and I have this you know, very unpleasant thought, emotion complex going on. It's okay. I'm just relaxed and I'm at peace. And if I think of that person, there's no drama, because I've chosen not to perceive the offense or the flaw. See?
Yeah.
So you must choose. Yes, you're saying perception is not a fact. Perception is a choice. You must choose which self you're going to interpret every situation from.
Yeah.
And that's going to determine your perception of it and the outcome for you. So perception is not a fact. It's a choice.
Yeah.
How do you choose to perceive the input that you're getting? Apparently, you might not have a choice about that. Stuff happens. People do things, but you have a choice as to how you perceive it, always. And that choice comes down to, do I want to be a separate self in the situation, or do I want to be oneself? Do I want to be the Christ or the ego? So it's so simple. Do you understand? I mean, he's simplified this whole realm of psychology, and he's got it down to the very core. He said, in the end, this is what it comes down to. It's a simple choice between which self do you want to be. And that's going to determine everything. Choose to be the Christ, the one self, and you have a whole different set of beliefs, thoughts, emotions, and perceptions of the same situation, compared with if you choose to be a separate self and you perceive it from the separate self. Same experience, but very, very different perception of that experience, and therefore very different life experience, because experience is perceptual. It's not actual. Its experience is all perceptual. So does that make sense? And we've looked at that diagram a number of times, but I think you look at it again, and you start to see, you know, what he's teaching us, the levels of mind. Very, very helpful.
Yeah.
To understand this. And the depth. I mean, this is it's a brilliant work. The theory is brilliant, because he's managed to merge the metaphysics of, you know, high spirituality. He's managed to put that into a psychological form that's actually very useful. If you understand how that levels of mind works, how forgiveness works, which is where the rubber meets the road. You know, all very well understanding the huge metaphysics of how the universe was birthed, but how does that actually apply to your life? And he's able to help you to do that. through this radical forgiveness process. Okay, so next one, by conventional definition then. Do you want to read that, Kim?
By conventional definition, then, to forgive, you must first acknowledge the offense, flaw, or mistake, and then somehow stop feeling angry and resentful toward the person. But how does one accomplish this if you've made the offense real in your perception? This is the ego's plan for forgiveness that doesn't work. Because once you've made the offense real in your mind, it becomes impossible to fully let it go. The best the ego, which remembers just the belief of separation, can do is what I call compassionate or mock forgiveness, that involves trying to understand why a person may have done what they did, and through this understanding, softening your judgment of them.
Yeah, so compassionate or mock forgiveness says, okay, it's happened, but I can try and understand why it's happened, why this person has done this, whatever it is, unconscious, cruel thing. And so if I understand that they had their own experiences, maybe they had a difficult childhood, they were abused, whatever, then it softens my judgment, but you've still made it real.
Mm-hmm.
It's really happened. So it's certainly better than not trying to forgive at all, but it's well short of the full release and freedom that the radical forgiveness Yeshua teaches in the Course brings. Because if you can really accept that nothing ever really happened, then the state of perfect oneness, or as we call it, pure formless awareness, has never been disturbed. Nothing ever really happened. It's undisturbed. Your state of mind is completely undisturbed. And you must experience what Paul called the peace of God, surpasses all understanding. Because it's not a rational understanding. The world's understanding won't get you there. That's what the quote's pointing to. Okay, next one.
The understanding Paul refers to is the understanding of the ego or belief in separation, that by definition cannot understand the oneness or pure formless awareness that it has denied in order to have some kind of existence in your mind.
So you cannot understand it. There's no way the ego can understand oneness. Because it's a belief in the opposite, belief in separation from oneness. So how can it understand what is denied?
Are you starting to see the integral connection between radical forgiveness as Jesus teaches it, and realizing the truth of his metaphysical teachings, that the world is an illusion projected by the ego or belief in separation, and also starting to see that radically forgiving or letting go, as he suggests you do, is the only way you're ever going to experience true and lasting peace of mind.
So the more you study this, the more you realize, look, there's only one way here. There's not multiple options. There's one way out of this of the dream, and that is radically forgiving or letting go of everything, your attachment to everything here. And that's the only way you're ever going to experience true and lasting peace of mind. Well, if there's only one option, there's only one way, life's quite simple, isn't it? Just do that. You don't have to look for other ways. Just focus on the one way that's going to work. And he's given us the process. He's given us the process in his course to do it, through the workbook. So as he says, there's no other way to be happy. I mean, it's quite a mind-blowing statement, really. There's no other way. There's only this. Only this is going to work. And part of our job with this course is just to learn to accept that. He's doing all the mind trainings, repeating the same thing over and over and over again, so that finally we accept, there's no other way. Okay, I accept that. If I accept that, then I better just get busy learning this way. and I'm not looking anywhere else. I'm not still, spiritually exploring and trying to find some other truth or some other way. I found the way, and now I just need to apply it. Just walk that way every day, which makes life much simpler. You're no longer seeking. You found the answer, and now you've just got to apply the answer. That's when you really start to make spiritual progress. You're no longer seeking, you found it, and then it's just, okay, I found the answer, but I must apply it without exception. That's the next stage. So we've all found the answer. Okay, but now can I apply it over and over and over again in every situation in my life without exception? And if this is really the only way, and you fully accept that, then wouldn't you want to dedicate the rest of your life to mastering this one essential skill of radically forgiving or letting go of everything that disturbs your peace? So that's all there is to do if you accept this as the truth. So that's why he spends a lot of time getting us to accept that there is only one way. We've got to then accept his teaching around the metaphysics and what's really seemingly happened to cause the world. Because then the one way out becomes obvious. Okay, any comments, questions, thoughts on that?
I smile when you say something. Both Jackie and I pick up a pen and scribble.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, let that go. After the session, we'll do some letting go.
Only one way. So, just focus on doing what you have to do. And life's quite simple. Not always easy to let go, but at least you know what you have to do. You're not confused anymore. The ego confuses you because it's like, oh, no, that's going to work. And then you go running down that rabbit hole and it doesn't work. And then, look for another answer. At least with the course, okay, well, I found the answer. I'm not looking anymore. I know what the answer is. I just need to do it. I need to, apply it rigorously without exception, which has its challenges, not always easy, but okay, then at least I know what I've got to do. So I can focus all my time and energy on doing that rather than seeking for an answer somewhere else. Okay, so next one.
It feels like it's still the ego mind that's trying to believe it's one with God.
Interesting. Is that what it feels like for you? Ego mind trying to believe that it's one with God, which is of course impossible. The ego mind can't believe it's one with God because then it wouldn't exist. So
when you're really triggered, like I was the other day when that email came in, I mean, yeah, try and let go, but it doesn't happen because it still feels like my ego mind is trying to let go rather than being in some other mind that I can't get access to in that moment. The moment of being triggered, there is only the ego mind. It's a whole chemical reaction in the body, and it feels so strong.
Yeah, so it's a covering over. It's the veil of illusion. But you practice, and when those triggers happen and it's strong, you practice, and then the next time it won't be as strong because you've practiced letting it go and accessing the other part of your mind.
Yeah,
that's aware.
I understand it from, so some of the practices that I've learned, say like havening, which is the trauma therapy. So you let go of the embedded trauma, and that's one way of releasing and trying to take that back to when that traumatic experience, probably was something relating to childhood or very early on in your life, or clearing the beliefs, which some of the other therapies practice I've done, they clear out negative beliefs, and you hope that once you've done all that, there won't be, if the ego is an accumulation of beliefs, negative beliefs, thoughts, well, any beliefs really, beliefs and thoughts and identifications, then you're kind of chipping away at all those beliefs and thoughts. Yeah, I mean, is that it? I mean, that's sort of, sometimes that feels like it's the way, and other times I mean, I suppose it's this, I keep hearing about the direct path and the indirect path. And, you know, I don't really understand that, to be honest, but, you know, the direct path takes you directly to perception of God or peace, love, whatever. But I don't see how you do that. If you've got all these emotional reactions that are coming up, which are, you know, coming up from your subconscious, beliefs in your subconscious that you don't even know about, how can you go directly to that place of peace? Because your subconscious is
you can't. Yes, you're saying you've got to let go of your blocks first. You know, what's in the way of the direct access to God is the blocks to the awareness of love's presence. Okay, well, if that's the case, seemingly, then let's focus on the blocks. You need to look at the blocks and you need to release them so that you then do have that access. So let go of the blocks to the awareness of love's presence, and what will be there is love's presence.
the letting go. Yeah. Okay.
So
it is the sort of
comes back to, well, you've got to let go of the blocks. Always. So that you do have direct access and direct communication with your source, and those blocks no longer exist.
But that could be a lifelong thing, couldn't it?
Well, it is, yeah. Your block, I mean, any belief that you have about a separate self, the world being real, that's a block to this pure formless awareness of perfect love. And pure awareness, there's no awareness of anything else. It's just aware of itself as it is. So no external world. The world's a block to pure formless awareness. How you perceive the world is a block. So they're saying, okay, well, it's a setup. The ego's got you nicely hooked up into this setup that seemingly justifies all these negative thoughts and emotions. That's the ego's construct. So now we've got to work to undo it. We've got to work with your perception. Undo your belief in the blocks. That's the important thing. Don't make them real.
Yeah.
In your mind, and then the blocks start to dissipate. You don't believe in them anymore. And then what reveals itself more and more is the foundational awareness, pure formless awareness of perfect love, as we call it, or God, that's always been there.
Yeah.
It's the very base of your mind, but it was blocked from your awareness through all the ego's negative thoughts and emotions, which are triggered through the external world. And it needs the external world in order to trigger those. So that's why you see how the inner world and the outer world are connected. You need the external world as a justification for the apparent negative thoughts and emotions of the ego and the inner world. So inside out, recognizing that, you know, this is what we've done this through projection. And the entire purpose of the world is just to be a justification for what's happening for the thoughts and emotions that the ego wants. It's a setup. We've projected out the whole world, the external world, so that we can have perceptions that of the seemingly external world that seem to justify anger and fear and hatred and guilt and jealousy and rage and whatever else, because that's what's needed to cover over the truth of pure formless awareness. We need those emotions, and we need something to justify them, because if there was no world, how would you justify it? Why would you get angry if you were just in pure formless awareness? You need the justification to stimulate the anger, to keep the covering, to keep the veil of illusion going. You see how it works? It's a setup, it's a system. The ego's invented it to perpetuate itself. When you understand that, then you can understand your way out of the system. Okay, well, the way out would be to change your perception of whatever external seems to be happening, because that's how the ego defends itself and triggers these things. So you must change your perception of that, so that instead of getting triggered, you let go of those feelings as they arise. And the more you do that, the less power you give this external world, the more you become rooted in your true self, in who you really are, and those values that go with it. Happiness, peace, love, joy. You realize these are really the only things of any value to you, and everything that you sought in the external world was just part of that system that perpetuated the pain and the suffering. It's a veil of illusion. And I had my mystic experience last year. I just saw it so clearly. This is all a setup. We've created a world, entire universe, an alternate reality, to create situations and circumstances that seem to justify the ego's negative thoughts and emotions. That's all that's going on. It's a veil of illusion pulled over the mind. First internally, we did it all internally, and then we projected it out externally, make it apparently external, and that's the apparent world we live in, an alternate reality that actually has no ultimate reality, but it's just a projection of a false mind, which is still apparently going, still apparently in charge of this world and its various quadrants. There is a way out. And this isn't hopeless. Just have to understand what's going on. And when you understand what's going on, the answer becomes quite obvious, doesn't it? You know what it is you need to do once you understand how this whole thing works. It becomes very straightforward. Where were we? Let's go back to this. Okay, let's crack on. Finish this. So we've done this. Starting to see the integral connection, as he says in a recent workbook lesson. Okay, so if someone wants to read that.
As he says in a recent workbook lesson.
Yeah.
As he says in a recent workbook lesson, there is no other way to be happy. If this is really the only way, then wouldn't you want to dedicate the rest of your life to mastering this one essential skill of radically forgiving or letting go of everything that disturbs your peace?
Yeah, it's simple, isn't it? There's no other way. Just get busy and learn this. That's what he's saying.
So it is. I think it was also said earlier in the session, and I think I've said it as well. It's like you brought it up, John, fake it until you make it. I mean, it's like,
yeah, by definition, you're not going to get this perfectly to start with. This is why you need forgiveness. This is why you need to practice it. A lot of people, I don't get it, so therefore I can't do it. No, the whole point is, yeah, you don't get it, but you can practice it. Through deciding to let go in any instance, you're practicing. And you're learning more and more that, the more you practice it and you see the miracles that happen, the more it's confirmed to you that this is actually the truth, what you believe must be the truth. So forgiveness is how you learn the truth. You practice over and over to learn that it's not real. You're saying just go through them, do it. Just work with these lessons, apply them, and you will learn this. That's what they're designed to do, to teach you this. It's a very simple thought system that undoes the entire ego. Okay. Next paragraph.
The logic of Jesus' argument and related motivation to apply ourselves to learning to forgive or let go of all our negative thoughts and emotions is as flawless as the love or pure formless awareness it leads us to experience. But you may still find yourself resisting it, even though on a logical level it makes sense.
No, I think that's come up. Sally and Jackie and shared. Yeah, there's still, I get it logically, makes sense, but the resistance is still there. There's not a full understanding and a full ability to then let go of everything. But then that's why you need to practice. to overcome that resistance. So it's completely normal to have resistance because that's what the ego does. It's a very deep-seated belief in most people's psyche. So it requires a lot of mind training to stop believing in it. The idea that you can just go like that and instantly, and sadly is not the case. You've thought so much about the ego and created so many stories, and there's such a deep investment in it that it's going to require a lifetime of disciplined mind training to undo it. That's just what we've got to accept. Okay, well, that's how I choose to live. And it's not just like you going, oh well, one day I'll be happy. It's like, no, moment by moment I can be happy if I do this. I'm happy on the journey. I'm not weighed down by all of the ego's negativity anymore. I'm happy as I'm doing it. So that it becomes self-rewarding. The more I forgive, the happier I feel. And so I'm in the moment, I'm happy, and I know that I'm also going in the right direction. So happy days. What else could I want? I'm happy now, and I'm actually moving in the right direction to ultimately transcend the whole illusion of time and space. This is all I want. And it's happening now for me. Okay. So Jackie, if you want to read the next one, this is normal because the ego belief in separation.
This is normal because the ego or belief in separation is very deep-rooted in most people's psyche. So it requires a lot of mind training to stop believing in it. But every time you do forgive or let go of any negative thought or emotion, correcting your mind and accepting the love or pure formless awareness that you really are a little more. These corrections are the miracles of A Course in Miracles title and lead to surrender, release, and acceptance. Their result has been called in various spiritual teachings, but whatever you choose to call it, the process of forgiveness or atonement remains essentially the same across all these seemingly different spiritual paths. The answer to all my imagined problems is so clear. Why do I still resist forgiving or letting go of my negative thoughts and emotions, you may well ask.
As I've already said, these come from a deep-seated belief in separation and the separate self that is its logical outcome. So you think you are this person. That's the problem. You need to undo the person that you think you are. Well, if this is your whole identity, your seeming reality, your existence, and this is undoing that. Well, that's quite a major exercise. Pretty radical by the world standards. Just undo the separate self. You're not human anymore. So that's the level we're taking it to. Therefore, radically forgiving or letting go is absolutely terrifying for this little self or ego, because it ceases to exist. It's doom. It's the end. It's the end of the game. End of its existence. It ceases to exist when you've really let go of all your negative thoughts and emotions, being made up solely of these. Okay? So it wants to exist, even though it has no absolute meaning or purpose, and it's engendering so much pain and suffering in your mind and the minds of everyone who believes in it. It wants to continue and have an existence, even though its existence isn't justified. And so it hangs in there, and it tries to convince you that its interpretations of reality are correct. Okay. Happy with that? Comments, questions, thoughts? Should we move on to next paragraph? Sally, if you can read that one. Yeshua calls the deep realization.
Yeshua calls the deep realization of the non-existence of the ego and the sole existence of God, pure formless awareness of perfect love, salvation or at one-ment in the Course in Miracles. a process and state which is known as enlightenment or awakening in other spiritual traditions. So there you have an overview of the meaning of some of the key terms in A Course in Miracles, and how understanding them will help you free your mind from all darkness, or as we translate it in our alternative AOLG language, limited awareness.
Oh, so understanding some of these terms is important to realize, it's a universal process. This is the process. Every spiritual path, every practice is designed to help you to do this one thing. To let go of all the blocks to the awareness of love's presence. Completely free your mind. So what I like about the Course is he's very explicit. He's telling us very clearly what's required. He's giving us the apparent problem, and then he's giving us the solution to the problem. And he's saying, well, practice this course, apply these teachings, and there's no more problem. All your problems can disappear. But deny it, maintain the ego, and your problems will continue the rest of your life and beyond that. Okay.
So I've got a belief that all my problems can't disappear. Yeah, okay.
We all do, because problems and the ego are one. You see, your problem, perceived problems, your self-concept are one and the same.
Oh, yeah.
So that's a belief that your self-concept can't disappear.
Mm.
In other words, Sally can't disappear because the ego is telling you, well, you are Sally. Don't forget it.
Yeah.
And your problems are part of the self-concept. So the ego doesn't want to solve your problems. It wants to maintain the problems because that keeps the self-concept going. The only way out of the problems is to go to another level, as Einstein said. The significant problems we face can't be solved the same level of thinking we were at when we created them. You cannot solve those problems created by the self-concept, false self-concept, at the level of the self-concept that created them. It's kind of obvious, but it takes an enlightened mind like Einstein to point it out. So, well, yeah, obviously you must go to another level. You must approach it from the higher self, capital self, that isn't a small self, that isn't invested in the problems. So let go, and this is the methodology, let go of your belief in the problems, and then you let go of the self-concept behind it. You see, that's the way. Go to the instrument of peace again. Let go of your belief in the problems, the perception of the situation, with the emotions and the thoughts and the beliefs that underlie it. That's the problem. And then you must be letting go of the self-concept to be of being a separate self that you desire to be. You see what forgiveness is doing?
So why can't we just do
self-concept?
Why can't we as a group just do this instrument of peace every session until we actually get closer and closer to letting it go?
Well, yeah, I suppose we could, but it's designed for individual practice. It's your own issue, really, that you need to work with.
I bet we've all got the same issues, because I think vibrationally you kind of match up with people that do.
It's realizing, you see, that the quick way is if you can really understand, okay, this is just a choice. All I have to do is choose to be one self, the Christ, the one self that believes only in perfect oneness and one identity, one awareness. If I can bring that awareness into everything that the ego has invented, it just deconstructs. It all gets, this is bringing the illusions, all these illusions, perception, emotion, thought, belief, that's the domain of illusion. And it brings it to the truth of there's only one awareness. So none of this can be true if there's only one awareness. And then it just disappears. And then the one awareness, by default, creates a different thought system, different beliefs, different thoughts, different emotions, and different perceptions of that particular situation. So you've transformed your perception by transforming your self-concept. That's how it works. And every time you forgive, you do that process, you make a shift then from belief in the ego to be, and the desire to be a separate self, to being oneself. And so you've transformed who you believe you are. And that's what forgiveness is doing. Authentic, radical forgiveness does that. Changes your self-concept. So that's why people find it challenging, because you're challenging your self-concept. Or who you believe you are is now being undone and replaced with something else. So that's why we have such resistance, because we think we are this person, and that this person does have these problems and all these things are real. And that's a misperception. That's a delusion that we must be freed from in order to free our minds. Okay, so any other questions on this? Otherwise, let's should we have a look at today's lesson and maybe the insert on what is the second coming. How does that sound?
Yeah, John, I'll just need to go in 15 minutes.
Okay.
Okay.
So let's do the lesson first then.
Okay.
All right, so if you can read that original lesson, I will not fear to look within today, the alternative and the first paragraph.
Okay. I will not fear to look within today. Within me is eternal innocence, because it is God.
You skipped the alternative. I'm not afraid.
Oh, sorry, I thought you wanted me just to do both the...
Yeah, read both. So I'm not the alternative. I will not fear to look within today. I'm not afraid to look within today. Because this points a bit more to the self-concept. I'm not afraid. There's no fear there. I'm not afraid. Just subtle nuances, but did the translation work for you today?
Yeah.
I'm not afraid to look within today. So you're stating a truth. So I'm going to, looking within means you've got to look at all of this. You've got to go beyond just the surface level of perception. You've got to look at the emotion and the underlying thoughts and the core belief. That's what looking within means. And you make the darkness conscious, and then you realize it's a decision. You know, I can choose how I'm going to perceive this, from the separate self or from oneself. When I make that choice, then all of these beliefs, thoughts, emotions, and perceptions change. And that's the miracle. That's forgiveness. That's what we're training our minds to do. Okay, so if you read the original, within me is eternal innocence, and then the alternative, and we'll unpack it a bit.
Within me is eternal innocence, because it is God's will that it be there forever and forever. I, his son, who will his limitless as his own, will no change in this. For to deny my Father's will is to deny my own. To look within is to find my will as God created it, and as it is. I fear to look within because I think I made another will that is not true and made it real, yet it has no effects. Within me is the holiness of God. Within me is the memory of Him.
Okay. So then read the alternative, and we'll just unpack it line by line.
Within me is eternal innocence, because it is perfect love's awareness that it be there internally. Its extension, whose awareness is limitless as is its own, can desire no change
So what we've done there, just so you know, is
Just to
translated
deny my
will.
own.
God's will
Just to deny
translated
my
will.
own.
God's will becomes awareness. Perfect love's awareness, and it's my awareness. So his son, whose will is limitless, whose awareness is limitless. Because that's what we're pointing to. Will is awareness. So instead of the idea of will, which is interpreted often as needing to something to do with the level of form and doing stuff, God's will for me is something must change and happen on the level of form. It's really just pointed to awareness.
Yeah.
So I'm the extension of this one awareness. Truth that it's my awareness. There's only one awareness. We talk about extension because apparently there's some kind of other awareness going on. So we're apparently in a separated state, which is why he uses terms like Son of God or extension. But actually, it's just one awareness. That's all that's there, and that's our awareness, which is limitless as its own. Can desire no change in this. So he's saying, I don't want any change. The whole illusion is that we did change it. That's the illusion we're trying to overcome. Okay? Happy with those first two?
Yeah, I think it's just it's calling to not for us to look within and not be afraid and brush over, like we were talking about earlier. And what I think you're saying is that there's that realization, okay, you have a limitless awareness, and then that the true formless, pure formless awareness, which is limitless. I'm just looking at in the first paragraph, I fear to look within because I think I made another world that is not true and made it real. So that's the fear.
So we fear our own mind. It's insane. How can you fear yourself? But that's the insanity. I think this other will or awareness is very scary and fearful, and it's going to hurt us and ultimately kill us. But we're keeping it going. It only has power because we believe in it. But to deny my source's awareness is to deny my own. I've denied my own awareness. I mean, that's the depth of the insanity of this. How can you deny your own existence, your own awareness? That's a completely impossible, insane idea of the ego. How can you be what you're not? Deny the very awareness that gives you all of your life, your true existence. How's that possible? He's saying it's not possible, it's impossible. So you've made the impossible seemingly possible, and now you're living in the results of what's impossible, which is why the world's impossible. It doesn't work. Okay. Happy to move on. Number 4, to look within.
To look within is only to find my awareness as pure formless awareness of perfect love, extends it as it is. I fear to look within because I think I made another awareness that is not true and made it real. Yet it has no effects within me, the pure formless awareness of perfect love. Within me is the memory of it.
So pointing us again within, to say, look within, and it's all there. But if I fear to look within, what most people don't want to do is go looking into the emotions and the thoughts and the beliefs that sponsor their perceptions, because there's pain there. Apparently, the emotions are painful, and to really look at your own core beliefs and go, those are false, and realize that you believe in what's false is painful, temporarily. And so we fear looking within, and so we don't, and then the ego keeps us rooted in our top level perception and self-concept that's sponsoring that. So you must, this whole process of forgiveness is saying you must go deeper, you must look within, and you must make the darkness conscious, and then make another choice. Change your mind about who you think you are, and therefore you change your mind about how you perceive all of this. So the Christ self, who you really are as Christ, then inspires the Holy Spirit's reinterpretation of all of this to transform it. So Christ and the Holy Spirit combined unite you with God, which is the pure formless awareness of perfect love that is behind the Christ self. It's that one awareness that ultimately is behind the one self. So if you look at this levels of mind diagram, we look at the Holy Trinity. Not sure if you've seen this one, Kim, but show it to you. So you've got the Father or Source, pure formless awareness, perfect love, whatever you want to call it. The Son or the true self or the Christ or the extension of love, or the East it's called the Buddha or the Atman. And then you have the world of perception, world of form with people, things, places, events, circumstances, situations, all the drama, traumas, successes, failures, and all experiences that seem to happen in time and space. So the way the system works is you go to the Christ, the one self, and from the Christ self, the idea of oneness, which is being inspired by pure formless awareness of perfect love, that's what underlies it, you then perceive differently. So you go and you change your perception of the situation by taking this belief in who you really are, and that changes your core belief. You can't be one self and also be a victim, because the victim means that you must be a separate self in order to be that victim, you see. So the one self changes all of those egoic beliefs, changes your perception. And so you've gone within, you found your true self, you've corrected your mind by making a decision for that, and then that's being allowed to transform your beliefs, thoughts, emotions, and perceptions. So you've gone all the way down, you've gone all the way back up, you're back in perception, but now your perception is a holy perception, a right-minded perception that's been inspired by the Christ or oneself, and the Holy Spirit, which is the ability to reinterpret all of this stuff from the perspective of the oneself. And that's how the Holy Trinity works, and that's why it's quite useful. Certainly in the illusion of time and space, it's an essential system to ultimately return you back here to just pure formless awareness, perfect love, which is heaven, where none of what happens here in the apparent separation is real. You recognize that and you just transcend. So does that make, I don't know if you've seen this before, Kim, does that diagram make sense?
Yeah.
Father, Son, Holy Spirit. It's an operating system for your mind. And if you combine that with the instrument for peace, you see how that operating system works in practice through these levels of mind.
Yeah.
Christ and the Holy Spirit are what allow you to reinterpret all of these levels and ultimately change your perception at the top level. Okay. Any other questions on that? Where are we? In me is the memory of it. So paragraph 1 is just pointing us within, saying that there is this true self, Christ, within us, and we need to be willing to find it, and don't fear to do this process. Saying don't fear to go through this process to look within, because that's the necessary process you must go through to really forgive it or let it go and be free of it. So instead of metaphysically ghosting, a metaphysical ghosting attempt would be like, well, it's all an illusion anyway, so I'm not even going to bother looking at it. Nothing really happened. And without actually going through the journey of, okay, well, let's look at the emotions. Let's bring up the thoughts. Let's see what the core beliefs are. And then change my mind and feel like there's a genuine letting go of these beliefs, thoughts, and emotions that sponsor the perceptions. That's authentic letting go. That's really going to get you out. just going, oh, well, it's all an illusion, so I'm not even going to bother looking, is not going to get you out. In fact, it's another defense of the ego, which will keep this whole thought system and the self-concept, which is the ego behind it, going. Okay. Any other thoughts on paragraph 1? Do you want to give a little summary of that, Kim? What's he saying there in essence in about 30 seconds?
Well, what this pure formless awareness is kind of is and always has been. We've had a perception that of something that's more limiting, and we've somehow been afraid to go within, and we've become fearful that kind of propagates the ego's existence. So, and maybe that's why the ego is there to prevent you from going within and propagates that fear.
If you don't go within, you never get to the core belief of the ego, which is that it's the victim, separate self. And behind that, the desire. You have to recognize that you chose this and you're still choosing it. You choose to maintain the ego's belief system. You're choosing to be a separate self. That's what's behind this, which was the original sponsoring desire behind it all. Remember, we decided we wanted to be separate for no good reason, just because we wanted it. Okay, well, I want to be a separate self rather than one self. So it comes down to looking at that insane desire and recognizing that it's just not true and that you no longer want that. The prayer of the heart would be, I choose to be one again. I want to just be one self rather than a separate self, which then is the complete opposite of the ego's desire to be separate. So you see how, like in a situation, like whatever situation's arising that's triggering you, by working with this, you're going through the levels of mind, and you really are collapsing the dream very effectively. So you look at this. Okay, so there's the metaphysics of, the thought of separation and the whole thing. People might go, okay, well, that's all great in theory, but how does it actually apply? Well, what you do through this instrument for peace and the forgiveness process, which takes you down through these levels, is you effectively undo all of the false beliefs, thoughts, and emotions that reside here, and you go back to the very core of the problem, which is a desire to be separate. That was the thought of separation originally. And you change your mind there and say, well, I don't want to be separate anymore. So you're actually correcting it at the level of cause, which was the thought of separation in your mind originally. Every time you forgive properly, radically, you're doing that. You're collapsing that belief. And when that belief goes, everything that comes from that belief goes too. So you're collapsing the whole thought system and the reality behind it, the reality that it leads to. By going to that thought of separation and just saying, no, I don't desire that anymore. This is not my choice. So he's taken high metaphysics, the understanding, and he's applied it in a practical process where in whatever life situation confronts you, you can make the decision that is going to free your mind completely. No, I don't choose to be a separate self anymore. I choose to be one self, which is then the Holy Spirit's reinterpretation of all of this, the ego's dream, reinterpreting it from the perspective of oneness to free your mind. Okay, so do you see how this all works? It's the metaphysics, and you can take a high-level diagram like this, but you can also then take it from the practical perspective of the instrument for peace. That's a process, and the levels of mind, which are how you're going to perceive and think and feel about any situation in your life. And you can see how these gel, how by doing this on the micro level of your life with a particular situation, how that is going to change ultimately the entire universe for you. You're going to collapse your belief in all of this and restore your mind to pure formless awareness of perfect love. And that's genius. He's given us a system that has the high truth, the metaphysics, but also a way to apply it in practice in your daily life by just reinterpreting all the situations that seem to block your awareness of this presence. And that takes you up the ladder to the very core of it, which is the idea of separation. And you keep correcting it. Okay, I choose to be one self, not a separate self. Fake it until you make it. You keep telling that to yourself. Sooner or later, you start believing it. And you start identifying with the Christ being the one self that is actually one in truth with this domain, with pure formless awareness of perfect love. It's what underlies the Christ. The Christ just allows you to still perceive things in the world so that you can continue doing this correction. Okay, does that make sense? I mean, hopefully there's a merge, and you start to see, okay, this is really brilliant, because he's got the high metaphysics and a deep understanding of how it all works from, the ultimate. This explains how the universe was birthed. Okay, so that's high metaphysics, cosmology, but then actually, how does that apply in your life? He's given us a very practical process through this radical forgiveness and the instrument, the levels of mind diagram, instrument for peace process, and the workbook lessons to help you to actually do it. And by doing it, you're then learning the truth of this, and you're correcting your mind every day. You're learning that I'm not a separate self, I choose to be one self. And then you dedicate your life to that reinterpretation. That's now your only function. Function of forgiveness is your only function, he says. What's that? What he means is the reinterpretation of the ego's dream. That's your only function. And forgiveness is the process of doing that. Okay, so happy with number 1.
Yeah, thanks, John. Sorry, I have to go.
Okay, well, thanks for joining us.
Thank you. Thanks, everyone.
Hopefully see you again soon. And
thanks, Jono.
Have a lovely week.
Thank you. It's you. Bye.
Namaste.
Bye, Jackie. Bye, Sally. Enjoy.
Bye, Kim.
Bye.
Okay, so number 2, paragraph 2. Do you want to read that for us? Read the original and then the translated version.
The step I take today, my Father, is my short release from idle dreams of sin. Your altar stands serene and undefiled. It is the holy altar to myself, and there I find my true identity. The step I take today, my source, is my sure release from false dreams of sin. Your foundation.
So your altar is your foundation. See the translation there?
Yeah, write that down.
Because it's a foundation of the thought system. So your foundation stands serene and undefiled. That pure formless awareness of perfect love, which is the foundation, is serene and undefiled by any thoughts that the ego's ever had.
Yeah.
Fortunately.
So your foundation stands serene and undefiled. It's the holy aware foundation of myself. And there I find my true identity.
Yeah. So in other words, it's the foundation. God is the foundation of the one self, the Christ. Pure formless awareness of perfect love underlies the Christ identity, doesn't it? Because you can't be one self without one awareness behind it.
Yeah. Okay.
The Christ leads you to God, but Christ rests on the truth of this one awareness. That's always underlying any high, even a higher self-concept, capital self-concept, is underpinned by just pure formless awareness, perfect love, which is beyond any self-concept at all. But it's useful to identify with the Christ because the Christ can still perceive. The Christ in you is the one self that can reinterpret all of these crazy events that the ego sponsored and perceive them from the perspective only of oneness. And as you do that reinterpretation, that's the Holy Spirit in your mind. When you actually do the forgiveness, it's the Holy Spirit in action, restoring your mind via the reinterpretation to the one identity, the Christ mind, and then beyond that into pure formless awareness of perfect love. So the Holy Spirit reinterpretation inspired by the Christ, the one self, will ultimately deliver you back to God. You're back into the state of mind where there's just pure fullness, awareness, perfect love, and nothing else going on. As an operating system for freeing your mind. Okay. Makes sense. Any questions on the lesson?
No.
Okay. So now, how much time do you still have? Can we do the insert on what is the second coming?
I've done that. I've done that already, I think.
Yeah, but you're supposed to do it every day. So
I haven't got time to do that actually, because I've got another thing I need to be ready for first thing tomorrow. So I need to go and prepare for that.
right. Okay. So
Coming back.
just do a meditation.
I actually I've got this transcendental meditation end of the course tomorrow. I need to go and prepare for that and do one of their meditations. So I'm going to leave now.
Okay.
And I don't know if Sally's taking the dog out. I don't know if she's coming back or not, but yeah, I think I'm going to
well,
go actually.
just ask her. Sally, are you? I saw her in the background.
Is she there? Hang on, let me go and see.
I saw her walking around there.
Let me see.
See if she wants to continue.
Sally's got things to sort out. She's been online most of the day, so I think she's probably needs some time. So, but that's lovely. Thank you again, and brilliant. So tomorrow we're on at 5, aren't we? Right.
Yeah. So tomorrow we can do 5, and then Tuesday I'm actually going out for dinner. So Tuesday we'll switch it to the afternoon.
Yeah. Okay. That's lovely.
12:30. Yeah. But tomorrow we can do 5.
Okay. Lovely. Fantastic.
Right,
Thank you very much, Jono. Take care.
Okay. All right.
Bye.
Bye for now. Okay, so I'm just going to read today's reading on from the Manual for Teachers, section 26. Can God be reached directly? Fairly short, sweet section, so only 4 paragraphs. So I'll just translate it as we go. So give me a moment to do that. Okay. All right, so I'm just getting this ready. If you're following the live stream or into recording, bear with me for a couple of minutes, and we'll go into reading and briefly discussing section 26 of the Manual for Teachers, which is in answer to the question, can God be reached directly? Okay. So God becomes pure formless awareness of perfect love. Him becomes it. Sun becomes extension. Word becomes message. Okay, so I'll just share my screen again. Okay, so all right, so this is on Manual for Teachers, section 26 of that Manual for Teachers, which answers the question, can God be reached directly? Interesting question. So let's see what Yeshua has to say about that one. Can God be reached directly? So God, or pure formless awareness of perfect love, indeed can be reached directly, for there's no distance between it and between him and his son, or it and its extension. His or its awareness is in everyone's memory, and its word, his word or its message, is written on everyone's heart. So the message of this perfect love, unconditional love, is actually there in everyone. Yet this awareness and this memory can arise across the threshold of recognition only where all barriers to truth have been removed. So we must remove the barriers to truth, or the blocks to the awareness of love's presence, however you want to term those, in order to recognize this awareness. Make that capital, actually. It's awareness. Where all barriers to truth have been removed. So in how many is this the case? You ask the question. Here then is the role of God's teachers, or perfect love's teachers. They too have not attained the necessary understanding as yet, but they have joined with others. This is what sets them apart from the world. And it is this that enables others to leave the world with them. Alone they are nothing, but in their joining is the power of God, or perfect love. So what he means by joining is we've seen that our interests are not separate from other people's interests. In fact, we all have one source, and we have one awareness, and we have one function here, which is to let go of all the blocks or barriers to truth and restore our minds to this pure formless awareness of perfect love. And so we unite in that function, and the teacher of God, or perfect love, simply recognizes that that is the case. There is only one function, one purpose, one meaning. We all have it, and he or she is united in that perception of one function and one purpose with all of his brothers, companions. So let's continue. Paragraph 2. There are those who have reached God, or pure formless awareness of perfect love in our translated language, directly, retaining no trace of worldly limits and remembering their own identity perfectly. These might be called the teachers of teachers, so the capital T, because although they are no longer visible, their image can yet be called upon. So someone like Yeshua, he's a teacher of teachers. He's attained the highest state of mind, transcended the illusion entirely, freed himself from the belief in any separation, and he now becomes the teacher of teachers. And we can call upon his name, his image, within the world of dreams to help us to access the same pure formless awareness of perfect love that he did. And they will appear when and where it is helpful for them to do so. So these teachers will appear as and when they are needed in the dream. To those to whom such appearances would be frightening, they give their ideas. So there won't necessarily be any kind of vision of them. Some people say they've seen Jesus or other teachers. Sometimes it's just the ideas. Because actually seeing Yeshua apparently in the flesh would be considerably fearful for many people. So no one can call on them in vain. Or is there anyone of whom they are unaware? Because they are one with the Christ mind, which knows everything. It's the whole awareness. It incorporates every mind into it. So all needs are known to them, and all mistakes are recognized and overlooked by them. Simply recognize the mistake and then overlook it. Realize it's not really a mistake, never really happened. That's the correction. That's the miracle. So the time will come when this is understood. And meanwhile, they give all their gifts to the teachers of perfect love. We look to them for help, asking all things in their name and in no other. So asking for guidance, asking for all things, and in no other. So they become the symbol then of God in the world, of pure formless awareness, of perfect love. So let's move on to number 3. Sometimes a teacher of God or pure formless awareness of perfect love, let's make that simpler, a teacher of perfect love may have a brief experience of direct union with pure formless awareness of perfect love. So they just enter that experience of pure formless awareness. If you've had that experience, you'll know it's something completely transcendent. It transcends the world. So in this world, Yeshua says, it is almost impossible that this endure. So it's a brief experience, it comes and it passes away. Can perhaps be won after much devotion and dedication, and then be maintained for much of the time on earth. But this is so rare that it cannot be considered a realistic goal. And so there are people who've done this. Think of a Ramana Maharshi. He woke up at 16 and spent most of the rest of his life meditating in a state of moksha or bliss. But that's pretty rare. It was quite unusual. So for most people, it's not a realistic goal. If it happens, so be it. If it does not happen, so be it as well. All worldly states must be illusory. So even that, meditating in the world, although you're in a state of mind of being one with the truth, might still have been some perception still of an external world, which means that there's still the ego in place. The ego ceases when all perception is undone and you're back in just pure formless awareness of perfect love. Okay, so all worldly states must be illusory. If pure formless awareness of perfect love or God were reached directly in sustained awareness, the body would not long be maintained. Body would not remain for long. Because you don't need a body at that level. You've identified only with your mind, and the body is no longer useful. Those who have laid the body down merely to extend their helpfulness to those remaining behind are few indeed. So those who have laid the body down, in other words, let go of the body, shall we say, change that, let go of their body, merely to extend their helpfulness to those remaining behind, are few indeed. And they need helpers who are still in bondage and still asleep, so that by their awakening can perfect love's voice be heard. This is what's going on. Yeshua, he's awakened fully and he's saying, I need help. I need your eyes and ears and hands and feet, and I need your willingness to help those who are in bondage, asleep in the ego's nightmare, to help awaken them. So if he calls you to speak and write and teach and act in the world, then do it by following the inner guidance, so that by their awakening, the love's voice can be heard. So the perfect love's voice can be heard when they're awakening. They cut through their awakening. So he's asking for us to join him and be his eyes and ears and hands and feet, expressing this thought system of truth in the world. So do not despair then because of limitations. It's your function to escape from them, but not to be without them. Interesting. So while you hear what he's saying, while you seemingly hear in human form, then you'll still see these limitations because it's part of being human. So you won't just transcend them straight away. Well, ultimately, you will. Just a matter of time till you will. So if you would be heard by those who suffer, you must speak their language. If you would be a savior, you must understand what needs to be escaped. So you want to say that you want to free others. You must understand what needs to be escaped. Salvation or awakening in our translated language is not theoretical. Behold the problem. Let's change that to perceive the problem, ask for the answer, and then accept it when it comes. So perceive the problem, you acknowledge there's a problem, a block. For instance, ask for the answer. Say, I'm willing to let this go. I'm willing to be freed. And then accept it when it comes. You get the guidance. Perhaps your ego won't like it, almost certainly your ego won't like it. So you must then actually follow it, accept it when it comes, otherwise there's no point. Nor will its coming be long delayed. Nor will its coming be delayed for long. All the help you can accept will be provided. And not one need you have will not be met. All the help you can accept will be provided. One need you have will not be met. So it's all given to you. So let us not then be too concerned with goals for which you are not ready. Your formless awareness of perfect love takes you where you are and welcomes you. What more could you desire when this is all you need? Takes you, maybe accepts you. God takes you where you are and welcomes you. God accepts you where you are. Yeah, I think accepts would be better. Takes implies taking you on a journey. Accepts you where you are and welcomes you. What more could you desire? And this is all you need. What more could you desire? And this is all you need. What more could you desire? Indeed, what more could you desire? And wherever you are, that's where you start. That's where this teaching meets you. It says, take you by the hand. Yeshua says, I'll take you by the hand and I'll lead you out of the maze that you've got yourself lost in. And he has to meet you in the maze in order to lead you out. So the course is addressed at the level of form and perception and time and space, which is the maze, in order to help you where you are. Otherwise, it wouldn't be very helpful at all. And this is the process. Understand it's a process. You understand that your formless awareness of perfect love is guiding you the whole way. And then you rest in that knowledge. Everything is fine. You're saved in that knowledge and awakened. And there's no desperation. There's no drama. Just realize it's a process that's going to unfold for you. Can God be reached directly? Yes, God can be reached directly. But for most people, it's a process to remove the blocks so that access becomes more and more direct. Many people need symbols, a teacher like Yeshua, something that symbolizes this, your formless aware, perfect love, which is totally abstract. So we go via someone else like a Yeshua, Buddha. These are all people who've symbolized truth that we can attain the highest state of mind, can find our way back to God. And then when you keep doing that, eventually you let it all go and you have direct access. You no longer need any image. You no longer believe that these people are really people. You no longer need their form, identity at all. But that's a process, and she's just saying God meets you wherever you are and often inspires his teachers. Perfect love inspires its teachers to teach, to help perfect love's children, its extensions, which is everyone, to wake up and realize who they really are. So summary of this is, yes, God can be reached directly, but temporarily. Might be helpful to have some intermediaries who can teach us, like Yeshua. So that ultimately we just go direct and we have a direct communication with an experience with our source. Okay, so that I think brings us to the end of today's session. Thank you to Kim and Jackie and Sally who joined earlier. It's great to have that discussion. Hope you've enjoyed it if you've watched it on the live stream or as a recording. And hopefully see you again tomorrow if you're part of the Art on Rainbow Club. Watch the Telegram and email messages tomorrow. The session will be at 5 p.m. UK time. That's 7 p.m. South African time tomorrow evening. Okay, so namaste. It's me signing off for the day. Have a lovely evening and speak to you soon.